yeah, you're right. This was an excellent topic, but we are gonna shift. I mean, we're gonna do even a harder pivot than shifting off Titanfall. We're gonna shift to UFC 234, which is maybe the least promoted pay-per-view I've seen in a while from UFC. It's headlined by the most nondescript UFC champion in the promotion, which is Robert Whitaker. Like,
Yeah.
I think you could ask a lot of people in the world who call themselves somewhat of MMA fans. You could ask them, "Who's the UFC middleweight champion?" And a lot of
Mhm.
people will go, oh, yeah, it's Robert Whitaker. You know, yeah, that's what. But I say that, but the arena's already sold out. Now, here's why the arena is probably sold out. And this guy has no problem telling you that he's the reason that it was sold out. Israel Adesanya says Robert Whitaker should thank me for selling out UFC
This kid
234.
is awesome. I
He's a
mean, let's just face
yes,
he's
man.
awesome,
He's
right?
awesome. He's awesome, man. He's awesome. He is. I mean, I think that the like I really think that from a marketing standpoint, he's one of the brightest. I don't want to say young stars because he's like 31, but he's one of the brightest relative newcomers
Yeah.
to the UFC. I mean, I think he's had 3 fights now, 3 or 4 fights with the UFC. Standout career as a kickboxer. But it's more than just that. It's just his flair, is his everything, his confidence. Like I remember the first time I saw him, I said, "This dude has like he literally reminds me of a hybrid between Anderson Silva and John Jones. He reminds me
Mhm.
of that, you know.
Mhm.
He doesn't have the wrestling that John Jones has, but the stand-up game
Yeah. It's
is
it's
yeah.
the it's the it's also he's got the build. He's got that we talked about that Roy Jones Jr. factor,
Mhm.
the Bruce Lee factor of just understanding people's body movement in the ring. You can tell when a fighter isn't robotic or just athletic. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's not always a bad thing, but when you're really athletic, you can just sometimes respond to what people are doing because you just fast
Yeah.
or you just big, right? You can just take it and move in on them. But some guys have this magical element where you move your ankle and they could tell what your shoulder's about to do, and they see it as soon as you do it. And Israel so they approach from different angles. They see the fight in a different way. And I think Israel is in that fascinating crop of fighters with Anderson and John Jones and those guys. I think he does fit that, and he admires those guys. He looks up to those guys. Um, so yeah, it's going to be really really exciting to watch him fight. Although I'm not mad at the Whitaker fight either. I think Whitaker is a fun guy to watch fight, but I think he's ho hum for a reason for people, um, because
He doesn't really have much of a personality, that at least not one that he's willing to share on camera. So he's not a boring fighter. Robert Whitaker's almost never
awesome,
in a boring fight.
awesome fighter,
Almost
awesome
never in
fighter.
a and just almost never in a boring fight. Like
No,
even if
no,
he
that's what
yeah,
I mean by awesome fighter. Like he's
yeah,
active. His
yeah.
style is active. And here's the thing: he's a guy who's a lifelong martial artist,
Hmm.
right? He's not just some UFC guy that was lifting stones from this yard to that yard and
Hmm.
got into beating people up. No, he's a guy who from a young age has done this martial art and that martial art, and he fights like it. Like he fights sometimes like a boxer, sometimes he looks like a karate guy. Like he has a lot of tools. I mean, that war that he had with Yoel Romero
Yeah, both of them.
was
Hmm.
awesome, right?
Yeah.
They both had awesome moments. I mean, Yoel Romero whooped his ass in that fight.
Yo Romero deserved to win the second one for sure. I thought he got a
I
little
thought
I
so too.
thought he got a little
And
snubbed.
so for me, that's my question is does some of the excitement come off the fact that at the top of the division, you'd almost rather see a third fight with him and Romero, or you feel that his road to this fight is not the traditional championship road of, I beat
Yeah,
everybody up until I beat the best guy and now I'm the best guy.
I think Robert Whitaker is one of the guys who, from a commercial standpoint, he needs a compelling dance partner.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to put all of this on Whitaker just because he's the champion. Kelvin Gastelum is about as bland, if not more bland, than Robert Whitaker.
Yeah.
And that's the other part of it. Gastelum actually has a personality. Gastelum, like, I've met Gastelum. He's funny.
Mm-hmm.
He's funny. He doesn't get a chance to, doesn't show it a lot. But like, I saw him at the MMA awards, and he sang this. He sang like a parody of some song. I can't remember what it was, but it was hilarious, and it was poking fun at the weight problems that he used to have.
Yeah.
Because he was trying to fight at 170, and he just couldn't make it regularly. So that's why he ended up coming up to 185.
Mm-hmm.
And Kelvin Gastelum's a former Ultimate Fighter winner and just a skilled guy, But yeah, man, I think he's kind of to blame for it as well, because this is just a tough main event to because really, honestly, the main event is really Adesanya Anderson Silva.
Yeah, but it feels like that, particularly because they're both such big names and
But
personalities.
that's what I'm saying.
Obviously, Anderson Silva is a lot older now. But let me ask you something because I don't want to disrespect the championship bout.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's easy with Israel on the card, right? Israel and
Mm-hmm.
Anderson's on the card. It's easy to just talk about that all day. My question to you is, what do you think about the fight? Like, who do you think's going to win that fight? Do you think it'll be a close fight? Do you think it'll be a war?
We talking about the championship fight, or we talking about
Yeah, championship fight.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a war. I think it's going to be a war. If it's not a war, I think it's Robert Whitaker sparking him early and knocking Gastelum out. But I think it's probably going to be a war. I would not be shocked if Gastelum won, and here's the reason why. I don't like what I'm hearing from Robert Whitaker.
Okay.
I don't like what he's saying. I don't like, and this could prove to be irrelevant. But he said after 10 rounds with a monster like Yoel Romero, it is a relief not to be in the octagon with him. Now, perhaps he just gave off the wrong vibe with that, but it sounds a lot to me like somebody, especially coming out of two wars where he got hurt, and especially coming from the standpoint of somebody who has endured a lot of actual injuries. He had a really bad staph infection. He had some other injuries. He got hurt against Romero, somebody who doesn't even fight a lot, which is another thing that hurts his marketability because he doesn't fight a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Coming from someone like that against an opponent like Gastelum, who's not this in-your-face guy and constantly motivating you with his words and his talk, sounds like it is the formula for underestimation and a formula for not being mentally plugged in. And at this level of this game, against these types of athletes and martial artists, that's not anywhere you want to be.
So your opinion is that he's not plugged in and he's gonna.
I'm not saying he's not.
But
I'm
you think he
saying
might not be.
it sounds like I'm seeing some
What if
signs
he?
of that.
Okay, and what if he is plugged in? Then what?
If he is plugged in, I still think it's a fight he could lose, but I'm more inclined. If we see the best Robert Whitaker, I think he beats Gastelum.
Yeah,
But
and that's where I am. If
yeah,
he's at his best, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he won convincingly.
yeah,
Convincingly.
yeah. No, I mean,
That's and
yeah,
that's really what it comes down. If
the,
he's not his best, then of course you're right. But if he's
yeah,
at his best, I wouldn't be surprised. And I think that's part of why it's underwhelming because Gastelum is not charging into this fight necessarily. The Bisping thing was short notice.
yeah,
I
and
mean,
it was,
he
and Bisping had no business in there.
of
He had no.
course not. He looked
I mean,
like
that early and at that stage of his career, that was
bad fight.
yeah, that was terrible.
Bad fight.
That
Shouldn't
was
have took that
absolutely
fight.
terrible.
And then he's got a split decision after that. So, and the wars that he had with Yoel Romero, that looked like two top of the line middleweights, just like toe to
They were
toe.
great fights.
That's
They were great
sick. And
fights.
I think it's hard to see this fight meeting up to that fight. And also the way he knocked out Bisping, I would be surprised if he knocked out Whitaker like that because Whitaker has clearly displayed that he has a chin because Romero would have knocked out most humans
Yes.
at some point during that fight. So I think that's why people are cool on it. But I'm excited to see what Whitaker looks like outside of the Romero story. I'm less excited for the Israel Adesanya fight
Yes.
from both sides
Yeah.
because, and I told you this before, I don't like seeing over the hill Anderson Silva. I wanted him to retire at 36 when he said he was going to retire.
Hmm.
I'm happy for him that he's enjoying fighting. Great, but I wish I didn't have to deal with him at the top of the division. I wish he was just doing show matchier stuff with other over the hill or up and coming dudes. I think Israel is too talented. Not saying that he can't lose. Anderson Silva is such a talented guy. It wouldn't surprise me if he somehow won. He's just so many skills.
It would
You know, I wouldn't
shock
be.
me. It would
It,
shock me. I would fall out of
it's
every seat I could sit
it's
in.
just the fact that it's MMA and everything crazy has happened in MMA. So it's hard to be shocked in MMA when both people are talented. I expect Israel to win, but here's my problem. If Israel gets caught, even if it's a submission or something like that, he just gets caught. That sucks. Like
It does.
that sucks. You know what I mean? And I don't want Israel in a lose-lose situation. You win, you beat up an 85-year-old Anderson Silva. You lose. How'd you lose to Dawson from Street Fighter?
Oh, that is that. I mean, it's bad for the UFC if the Adesanya loses. It's bad for it's literally bad for the UFC if Adesanya loses. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's like that ain't good. You know what I mean? Because
And
this guy,
that's why it's like as much as I want to see Israel fight, it's hard to, like
yeah, yeah.
I didn't
Like
want to
I
see Anderson
mean,
Silva fighting any of these fights.
now when you said that, you said this last week
Yeah,
about Damian Maya. I had a problem with it, but in this situation, I tend to agree. And the reason being is because Anderson's game is much more predicated on athleticism and
yeah.
explosion and that sort of thing.
Well, and you
And
seem to misinterpret that I was saying Maya was trash. I never said that. I never said he was bad. I just said I don't care.
right,
I don't care. I didn't say he was bad. I didn't say he was going to lose. You in fact you said
here's the
he was the
thing.
best submission guy in history. I said I'm not disputing that, but he's 40 years old, and it's different if I'm looking at the 31-year-old best submission guy in history versus a 41-year-old best submission guy in history. I don't care as much, and I also dispute you on BJ Penn. You talked about BJ Penn losing like he just lost the last 3 fights. That dude been losing since like 2006. So, but whatever.
BJ
Moving on.
Penn should be sitting down in a recliner somewhere and never moving towards another cage ever again. I mean, come on, bro. He needs to just stop. It's just he should stop. So I definitely think he should stop. But Damian Maya, all I was saying was put some respect on his name.
All the respect on his name. I never
That's
took
all.
respect off his name. I just
That's
don't care. It's like Metro Exodus. We both said it's gonna be hot, but we both said meh. Damian Maya is the Metro Exodus of the
no,
UFC.
I didn't say meh to Metro Exodus. I
You
said
said you said warm.
bro, warm.
Warm
Warm.
means meh.
No,
It's literally what lukewarm means.
you're not warm
Look at
on
meh in
that.
the Urban Dictionary. It probably
No,
says lukewarm.
no, you are not meh or you are not lukewarm on Damian Maya. You were very frigid towards Damian Maya. Like I started hearing the Frozen theme song as you
No,
talked
I'm
about
I'm
Damian
frigid in terms of my personal interest.
Maya.
What
Okay.
do I think of him as a fighter? Yeah, he's a good fighter. He's an older guy. He still fights great, and the style, like you said, the style that he fights in gives him a better chance going forward than if he was an Anderson Silva. But
Damian
I
Maya
still don't
Could
care.
Damian Maya could still beat any welterweight in the world.
He can,
He could.
sure, he
He could
can.
still because if you if you get down there with him,
Yeah, it's
there
fun.
is
Yeah,
there is no guarantee you are standing back up. And so and as long as you got that, that's his equivalent of a puncher's chance in boxing.
I agree. I totally agree. Which is
So
why
put some respect on his name is all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.